Yo, what's up, home slices? Welcome back to another intriguing episode of the Community Corner podcast. I'm Arnav.
And I'm Nikhil, and today we're delving deep into a topic that impacts all of us, financial literacy in the education system.
And I guess it's a topic that's been buzzing around lately, and we're here to talk about it. So we're going to talk about financial literacy and why it should be a crucial part of the high school education system, what teenagers should know before stepping into adulthood, and how our public education system could make this happen, including implementation techniques, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, so why don't we start off this episode by addressing the elephant in the room, right?
Nikhil? I'm joking.
The current gap. It took me a second to understand. The current gap in financial education, right? So the question here is why are we memorizing things like complex math equations, analyzing science pieces, physics, etc., but not learning basic financial concepts that technically we all need to know, regardless of our occupation, filing taxes, etc. in the future.
That reminds me of that one meme where it's like, bro, I'm learning quadratic formula right now, but when am I going to learn taxes? Or those people on TikTok where it's day 9,909 of not using the quadratic formula in my day-to-day job. And I thought, yeah, we can laugh and joke about it, but let's actually talk about it, right? So it should be a crucial part of the high school education, and I think it's really important, right? It's important because it doesn't always equip us with practical life skills, the stuff we were learning. Right now, I'm in Physics C. Yeah, the stuff we learn is really, really interesting, but for 99% of the people, it's not going to help. And that's why we have specialized courses and we have mandatory courses, things that we have to learn. And I think financial literacy is something that we have to learn, right? It's like we're graduating with honors in calculus, but struggling to understand taxes, mortgages, and investments, things that we will have to use no matter what in the future.
Right, and I think, adding on to that, right, these are things that really empower teenagers with the knowledge and skills to navigate those financial challenges in adulthood. But not only that, but there's a lot of soft skills, right? The ability to just think for yourself, think freely on what decisions need to be made. Exactly. And it teaches them lessons about practicality because, yeah, you might want to do a million things in your life, but you also have to think about the finances behind that and if this is really something that's attainable as far as a goal, right? And, with that, it's important to understand how to budget, save, invest, all those things in relation to money and avoid common financial pitfalls, right?
Exactly. I think, yeah. Well, I just want to first of all preface by saying we're not going to be here and say quadratic formula isn't important. We're just, because it definitely is in some aspects, and people who want to take the specialized courses, they will have to use it in the future. It's always a good life skill to know how to learn specific things, right? We go to school not just to learn what we're learning, but learn how to learn. And that's so important. A lot of people don't grasp it. But what we're arguing today and what we're going to talk about today is we have all these courses that were mandatory to take, math, science, English, history, but we're also saying we should include financial literacy in mandatory courses because of its impact in our future, in our life in the future. But obviously getting to specifics, let's talk about the benefits of financial literacy and what teenagers can actually gain from this education in high school.
Well, I know we mentioned a couple topics before, but, pretty much with the financial literacy course, what we can expect students to learn, especially in high school, is things like student loans, right? Credit cards and investments. And the reason why we want to cover these things is because these are things that they're going to deal with pretty much as soon as they leave high school, right? Student loans, if they're going to college, that's a big thing. Credit cards and debit cards, those are things that a lot of, people as young adults tend to get. In investments, right? Whether it's through the stock market, whether it's through cryptocurrencies, whether it's through retirement funds, right? And we want to make sure that, this younger generation of not only America, but obviously across the world, these populations are avoiding debt traps, right? And we want to help them build wealth over time and be better prepared for life's financial challenges. And also they're going to become a little bit more savvy with consumers and, maybe even helps them develop a background in entrepreneurship.
And that's a good side effect, but obviously not everyone wants to go into that. But thing is, a lot of people without this knowledge are it's putting them in a very bad situation just because of their lack of financial knowledge and lack of budgeting, things we talked about, right? But we can sit here and say, yeah, this is good, this is good, this is bad. But how do we actually implement this in our school, public education system? Because it's very tough to incorporate a change in society when that thing has been built on by decades and decades of a certain way of doing things. right? So how do we implement this moving forward?
So I think there's kind of a number of methods. I think the most like thought of approach is obviously just implementing it as a course requirement. So a lot of schools actually, especially in the United States, offer a financial literacy course, but normally it's an elective, and that's kind of where this argument comes into play of, hey, maybe we should make this an actual required course. Just like, you have to take, a lot of schools make you take 4 years of math, 4 years of English, etc. And what's interesting is that a lot of states have actually mandated this. I think the statistic I read was about 20 or more of the 50 United States of America states actually have a law saying that you have to take those courses to graduate. And so I think for those remaining 30 states, they can easily follow suit by just looking at the trends, right? Those trends in some of those states of how it worked, right? What patterns are there? How did this improve? And so in Texas, we don't actually have that law, but what we've seen is that there's a lot of statistics pointing to the fact that we have a lower financial literacy status. There's a statistic I read online about that it was about 6% of overall 6% of people in the United States don't have a credit card or debit card, but in Texas it's 8%, and there's statistics like that point to that.
Yeah, I know Texas has a very big rural population, and with a high rural population, there's also a very high chance of low financial literacy rates. In terms of courses, obviously in the recent past, we've had courses like AP macroeconomics and AP microeconomics that are being taught at schools, but it's helping the problem, but it's not fully solving it because, first of all, it's an AP course. Not many people take it. It's not a required course. There are many other history courses people can take, and it's just not very accessible. Only like a certain amount of schools offer it. So moving forward, I think it's very important to implement a mandatory once a year financial literacy course in some way just to help with this problem.
Yeah, and I think even aside from just courses, right, like there's a lot more things we can do, especially from a community standpoint. Like if you've worked with the mayor or any type of politician in your area, you know that they can host things like workshops and community gatherings, etc., right? And I think one thing we can see possibly in the future, and I know a lot of people have done this in their respective areas, is hosting some sort of a workshop to develop those financial literacy skills. Maybe it's once a month at the town hall, right, in Frisco, Texas, right? We can host, a workshop to develop their financial literacy skills, teach people about debt, income, things like that, how to manage an income statement, etc. And this is something I think that can make, these things more interactive, relevant, and engaging because you're around people that, it's optional and you're around people that you want to be around, right? And this is a really little bit more of a simpler way to implement real world scenarios because things like implementing a law or a state mandated course can obviously take a lot of time because that has to be passed on, by one legislator to all the way up to, the Capitol. For us, it's in Austin, and that has to be weighed up. And, there's education agencies like the TEA in Texas that has to, weigh in on that decision, et cetera. And that can take a lot of time.
Exactly. And bridging that gap is so important. And I think on that note, it's time to conclude the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Community Corner podcast. We hope these discussions shed light on the importance of financial literacy in high school and spark conversations within you, your friend group, your family, your whatever, on how to make it a reality. I think it's important that we push this notion so people in the future can be aware of this. But for now, stay tuned for more episodes where we dive deep into pressing community topics, business, tech, finance. Until next time, thank you. Take care of your finances. And remember, the corner is where we all gather. Peace.